Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick. In this video we're going to be comparing the Saucony Hurricane 24 and the Saucony Triumph 22. So the Triumph and the Hurricane are two of Saucony's top cushioned running shoes, with the Triumph being a neutral shoe and the Hurricane being a stability shoe. Both shoes have had a big overhaul this year with the addition of Saucony's PWRRUN PB foam to the midsole, which is the PB-based material that we previously saw mainly on shoes like the Endorphin Speed and Pro, fast running shoes. It's now been added to these big cushioned shoes, and these are very big cushioned shoes and they've got big prices to match. They're both $160 in the US, but in the UK it's a little different. The Hurricane is $165, Triumph is $170. Who knows exactly why the prices have worked out like that in the UK. They're both quite heavy shoes. The Hurricane is 326 grams or 11.5 ounces in my UK 9. The Triumph is very similar but slightly lighter. It's 322 grams or 11.4 ounces. The Hurricane is a lower drop shoe than the Triumph. It has a 6mm drop with a stack height of 38mm at the heel and 32 at the forefoot, whereas the Triumph has a 10mm drop with a stack height of 37mm at the heel, 27 at the forefoot. So with the Triumph 22 you now have a midsole entirely made of Saucony's PWRRUN PB foam with an Ortholite sock liner in there as well. Saucony increased the width of the shoe and added these big sidewalls of foam to increase the stability compared to previous models when they changed to the PWRRUN PB foam with this model. We've got an engineered mesh upper that has pretty good padding around the heel and tongue, quite a big and significant internal heel counter on the shoe as well, again with stability in mind. And then you have good outsole coverage on the Triumph 22. It's got better outsole coverage than the Hurricane 24, although the key impact areas are still covered on the Hurricane 24. You can see there's a lot more exposed foam in the midfoot there, whereas you've got pretty full outsole coverage on the Triumph 22. When it comes to the Hurricane's midsole setup, you have two foams in there. The majority of it is the PWRRUN PB foam, but then you have a frame made of Saucony's PWRRUN foam, which is a bit firmer, a bit more durable, and adds stability to the shoe by kind of cradling the softer, bouncier PWRRUN PB foam in the middle of it there. You also have sidewalls of foam and an even wider base than the Triumph 22, again with stability in mind. You've got a similar kind of engineered mesh upper, padding around the heel, internal heel counter on the shoe as well, and as I mentioned, you've got pretty good outsole coverage, but not quite as full coverage as you got on the Triumph 22.
Okay, so the fit for me in both of these shoes, very similar. I'm a size 8 in the UK, and both of these shoes are very, very comfortable. There's plenty of space in the forefoot. They're not in any way narrow shoes. They fit me. I've got a very average width foot, and they fit me perfectly, give me a lot of wiggle room in the toes. So definitely very similar in how they're designed. The upper of them is also pretty similar in terms of build. They're both quite structured uppers, really hold the foot in place nicely. I've actually ran them London Marathon in the Triumph 22 and I didn't have any issues with the fit at all. So I would stay to my size in both of these shoes.
So in terms of fits, I've had a very good experience in both of these shoes. I've had them both in my typical UK men's size 8, and I would say that I've had no issues to really report on either of these shoes. Now I've had them both in the kind of regular width fit option. You do have the option to go wider, but I found kind of on my narrow skinny feet, they're actually quite broad fitting shoes. They're not overly spacious, I don't think, and they still hold in the right places, but I think ultimately they do offer a relatively broad kind of base, I think, as I said, in that kind of regular version. I was very happy with the space up front of the toes. I think it's very similar in terms of the amount of space you're getting across these two shoes. There's enough there to let your feet kind of spread out, but also they're not overly kind of generous in that space on either, not overly long. So I think, you know, you're not going to have to worry about that, I don't think. I think you go back, the midfoot hold is very good. The laces and the tongue combinations, I think, offer a very good kind of lockdown. I think you may be getting a little bit more volume in the tongue on the Triumph 22 shoe. I think overall there is just a bit more volume and the feel of that upper. They're both quite thick uppers, so that's, you know, something to keep in mind. So that, you know, maybe if you're going to be running in warmer conditions, you are going to feel that they're a bit kind of thicker to kind of throw on. When you go back further, you're getting similar levels of padding around the heel collars. I've had no issues. I mean, there's slightly difference in terms of the formations around the heel collars at the back, but ultimately I haven't found they've kind of rubbed in any kind of bad way. The lockdown hasn't been an issue at the back either. So yeah, for me personally, I think going from the regular kind of, in my kind of usual UK size 8 has been fine. Maybe if you prefer something with a little bit of a broader, wider base, there is that option in both of these shoes. But I think ultimately going true to size should be fine for most people.
Comes to the fit of the shoes, I've got a UK 9 in both shoes, which is a US 10. That's the size I've generally used with Saucony for a while, and the fit is very good in terms of length. Good hold around the heel and midfoot. I've had no concerns with rubbing or any kind of Achilles irritation with these shoes. So yeah, I was very happy with the fit of both shoes in my normal running shoe size. On to the run test then, and both of these shoes have surprised me in quite different ways when they came out this year. I think the Triumph 22 launched first, and there was a lot of expectation around it. Triumph 20 and 21, really good shoes, some of our favourite cushioned running shoes. A lot of hype around the Triumph 22 with the addition of PWRRUN PB foam, which we really liked in shoes like the Endorphin Speed and Pro. So basically we're expecting great things from this shoe. It didn't really work out that way. The Triumph 22 was a little bit of a disappointment for us because Saucony kind of pushed it much more into the cushioned cruiser category. The PWRRUN PB foam in here doesn't feel as bouncy and sprightly as it does on other shoes, and you've got what is a nice stable shoe that rolls through okay and protects the legs well, and it's pretty soft underfoot, and it's, you know, fine for easy runs and long runs and that kind of thing, but it lacked the spark that we were kind of expecting with the addition of the PWRRUN PB foam, and actually became a slightly less versatile shoe than previous models of the Triumph. It is a pretty nice cushioned cruiser still, but we were hoping for a bit more from the shoe, it's fair to say. In contrast, the Hurricane 24 didn't arrive with much hype. I wasn't that excited to test it, to be honest, given that we just tested a shoe of PWRRUN PB foam, similar weight. I thought it wasn't going to feel that great, but actually the Hurricane 24 does feel pretty special underfoot. It's got the kind of soft, bouncy, fun feeling I was expecting from the Triumph with the addition of the PWRRUN PB foam. And the foam feels completely different in the shoe than it does in the Triumph 22, which is obviously a bit odd. Obviously the geometry is very different as well, and I think that also helps to really make the Hurricane a great shoe for cruising around. It's actually a shoe I've really loved running in, one of my favourite cushioned shoes. It rolls through very smoothly with that lower drop, a bit more of a rocker going on. Obviously it's very stable and wide, and then it's extremely comfortable. The PWRRUN PB foam in the midsole really gives a nice sink-in feeling, a cushy feeling, but then pings you back so you're not just getting lost in mushy foam. Like, it's really exactly what you want from a big cushion shoe like this, and actually it ends up running a fair bit lighter than its weight, I found, when doing long runs in the shoe or even picking up the pace a little bit, whereas with the Triumph 22 I didn't really get that feeling. It felt like quite a heavy shoe, decent enough experience for those slow easy runs, but the Hurricane feels more comfortable, it feels more lively, and it rolls through more smoothly as well. They're both quite stable shoes, I would say, but obviously you get a bit more of that with the Hurricane with the even wider base on the shoe. It's one of these kind of modern stability shoes that doesn't use things like medial posting or anything like that, but delivers a very stable experience. And actually, although I'm a neutral runner, I still really enjoyed running in it, and it doesn't feel like the stability elements are obtrusive or anything like that, so I wouldn't really worry about those. I think even if you're a neutral runner, you could pick between these shoes quite happily, and I did prefer the ride feel of the Hurricane 24. Did a short run wearing both shoes at the same time, and you can really feel that the Hurricane feels a bit special, I think, anyway, because it's got that really nice feeling underfoot. It's bouncy, it's soft, it's enjoyable, it's smooth, it kind of does everything I would want for a big cushion shoe like this. It's not a type of shoe I generally tend to go for because they can be a bit too heavy for me. I don't necessarily need that much foam underfoot, but the Hurricane 24 I really enjoyed using just because it does have such a pleasant ride of all the materials in there, whereas the Triumph 22 didn't give me that feeling. It's exactly why I don't tend to go for big cushion shoes like this. It felt a bit heavy, it didn't feel that kind of bouncy or fun or roll through that well. It felt protective, it felt like it was doing the job it's kind of designed for, to protect the legs on easy runs, but it wasn't a shoe that really did it for me. The Hurricane 24 very much is.
Okay, so this is a tricky one because the Saucony Triumph 22, I've been a massive fan of the Triumph line for the past 3 versions of that shoe, and just love the versatility of it, like the fact it had a little bit of bounce, just that it had a lovely smooth rolling motion to it. It was one of my favourite shoes for just most of my easy daily training miles, longer sessions. Could use it for anything basically. It probably wasn't the best shoe to use if you were going for like a sub 3 marathon, but it was still very versatile where cushioning shoes are, and was definitely one of my favourite shoes over the past few years. The Triumph 22, I am not really a fan of this shoe. The way that the structure of the shoe has been changed just doesn't work for my style of running. I feel like it's lost a little bit of the energy return that I got from the Triumph 21 and the 20. I feel like it is a little bit dull when I run in it, probably because of where I land. I'm a midfoot to slightly heel striker, and it just doesn't seem to get anything when I hit it on there. I know it's a different experience for Nick because he's a heel striker, but for me it just doesn't work. It just sort of hits the ground and I'm just pulling my foot back up, so I'm not getting any smooth rolling motion with this shoe. I'm not getting any nice bounce or anything like that. It just really feels like quite a solid shoe that just doesn't really offer me any benefits. The midsole, it feels a little bit firm to me because of the way that I land. I know that the foam I shouldn't feel like that. I think Nick actually feels it's quite soft in the heel, but for me it just doesn't seem to do anything. It might be to do with my weight as well. I'm only around 69 kilograms, and I just don't seem to impact that midsole in the right way. So not really a big fan of the Saucony Triumph 22. The Hurricane 24 is a really interesting shoe because on paper I didn't think I'd like this shoe. It's a stability shoe. It looks a bit chunky. I'm not really a fan of the guide range from Saucony, and I assumed it would be very similar to that. But I really, really like this shoe. Even though it's a stability shoe, it's very difficult to tell that it's a stability shoe. If I didn't know it was a stability shoe, I wouldn't have thought it was. It actually rides more to me like something like the New Balance More V4. It has a nice, smooth motion when you're running in it. There's a really wide base on this shoe, which just really nestles your foot comfortably as you're running. That's partly where the stability comes from. It does have stability elements in the midsole as well, not a big medial post like we get in older shoes. It's just a really great, comfortable, chunky shoe that for easy sessions, for longer runs, it just feels great. And I've really enjoyed testing the shoe. I've been very surprised by how much I like this shoe. So even though the Hurricane 24 is a stability shoe and the Triumph 22 isn't really a stability shoe, I would actually say that the Hurricane 24 rides better for me. It feels smoother, feels like it's more comfortable to get a nice consistent pace in, just nicer to run in for me because of the way that it's built. And I would not have thought that before these shoes came out. I would have assumed that Triumph 22 would still be one of my favourite shoes. So yeah, it really comes down to that. I think there's the actual design of these shoes and how they look, and the stack is pretty similar. But really, there's just a much nicer ride on the Hurricane 24 for me, and I've just really enjoyed doing my training in this shoe. I wouldn't say it's the most versatile shoe in the world, but those easy runs, those long runs where you're maybe running at zone 2 and you're just going for a nice, comfortable pace, it's really, really nice and just smoothly glides the foot along, and yeah, does the job. Whereas the Triumph 22 doesn't do that. I just don't get any smoothness from it. I just feel like it's just a bit of a dull shoe for me, which is a shame because I really, really liked the earlier Triumphs, and I really wanted to like this, but yeah, just doesn't work for me.
So in terms of my running experience with these two shoes, I would say they definitely work for the same types of runs. I think ultimately with the Triumph, I think previously it has been more of a versatile shoe for me, a bit more of a shoe that you could use for easy runs, but could also transfer or kind of transition to more up-tempo runs. I don't think that's necessarily the case here with the Triumph 22. I think with the Hurricane 24, I think it very much is about those recovery runs, those kind of easy runs, those relaxed pace runs, and I don't think it really tries to be anything more than that in terms of my experience. So, and this is the first time I've run a Hurricane as well. In terms of looking kind of at drops and those kind of stack heights, there are differences there that you're supposedly getting, a bit more in the forefoot on the Hurricane 24, but I think ultimately they are big stacked shoes and you are going to notice that. I think what's really kind of dictating the experience for me is what you're getting in the midsoles, the foams that are being used here. The Triumph 22, you're getting that kind of PWRRUN PB here, which is obviously what is used in the kind of endorphin range, but ultimately I don't think it's the same, exactly the same type of PWRRUN PB that we've got on those shoes. Definitely does offer some bounce, but I don't think it is as aggressive, and I think obviously having that bigger stack doesn't equate to this massively lively kind of bouncy shoe, I think, based on my experience. And then you get onto the Hurricane 24, that's got the PWRRUN PB in there to give you some of that bounce there. Again, I think it's a similar thing where you're getting that moderate bounce, but then you're also getting that PWRRUN foam in there as well too, to really kind of temper that bounce and make sure there's some control there as well. Now, I would say that both set those kind of midsole foams over quite broad bases, so they're very much stable shoes to run in, very controlled shoes to run in. So I think if that was something you'd be concerned about, then I think they definitely tick the boxes on that side of things. The Hurricane 24 is technically a kind of moderate stability shoe. It's got some stability elements in there, but I don't think, based on my experience, and I'm a neutral runner, I should be running in neutral shoes generally, this shoe is going to work for people who are neutral kind of shoe users as well. And I don't think those kind of stability elements really kind of stand out for me, and it doesn't stand in the way, or has stood out in the way for me from enjoying running in the Hurricane 24. Now, when I've used these for the same types of runs, I think ultimately I just feel like I've had a nice experience in the Hurricane 24. I think, as I said, I think these are designed for the same types of runs, but when I've run in the Hurricane 24, I found that it's, apart from the first run that I did, it's definitely softened up. I think there's a gentle rocker in there. It really kind of rolls through really nicely. Just feels very comfortable to run in that shoe, and it always has done when I've kind of thrown it on, bar that first run. I think in the Triumph 22, I felt like, because I've loved the previous shoes, I felt like this was going to be the ultimate kind of shoe for me in terms of having that PWRRUN PB. that PWRRUN PB doesn't equal the same experience I've had in other shoes that use that kind of foam. And I think ultimately it's felt a bit, I mean, it's not overly bouncy. I think it feels a little bit blockier for me. I don't think that ride is as lively as I'd want it to be. And I don't think you roll through as nicely now. At least I haven't found that for me. And as I said, I found like with the previous Triumph, you could run a little bit more up tempo in it. I definitely don't think that's the case here with the Triumph 20C. Now, this is the lighter of the two shoes, but I think ultimately these are big shoes, but I think this handles the weight a little bit better for me despite being the slightly heavier shoe. And I think ultimately you are running easy in this shoe, that's not going to be an issue. I think for here, if you were trying to pick the pace up in it, I think it becomes a little bit more of a problem. From a durability point of view, I think not a huge amount in it. I think the outsole on the Triumph 22 is a bit more rubber there. I think, you know, so that's probably maybe going to give you a little bit more life, I think, ultimately, but I don't think it's a huge amount in it. These are shoes built for long runs, easy runs, recovery runs. So for me, I think they are going to excel the same types of runs, but I think ultimately there is one shoe that I prefer doing those types of runs in, which I'll get into next.
So my verdict on these two shoes, pretty easy really. If this was the Triumph 21 versus the Hurricane 24, I'd go for the Triumph 21 all the way just because I don't need stability. That shoe was a really nice, versatile shoe. The level of energy retaining that midsole worked really well for me, and I loved training in it. It was like the perfect holiday shoe for me that I could do lots of stuff in. Now the Triumph 22's out, I don't have any of those sorts of responses to this shoe, and I much prefer running in the Hurricane 24 now than the Triumph 22, because essentially these shoes are doing the same thing. I could only use them for easy sessions, longer sessions at a consistent slower pace, and really the Hurricane 24 just feels better at those because there's no versatility for me in the Triumph 22 now. There isn't really any in the Hurricane 24 either, but it just feels nicer to me, and I'd much prefer to go out for a nice, comfortable, easy run in this in the Hurricane 24 than the Triumph 22 at the moment. So I'm going for Hurricane 24 all the way.
A verdict is a pretty easy one for me here. Like the Hurricane 24, I think is the better cushion shoe, and I think these are both very much shoes that you'd stick in your rotation to cover easy and long runs. If you're a newer runner or someone who just likes a really big cushion shoe to do all your runs in, then these are both fit in that category as well. And when it comes to all those jobs, I think the Hurricane 24 does it better. It's one of my favourite cushion shoes now. I really enjoy running it for easy runs, recovery runs, protects the legs well, but also feels fun underfoot and nice and cushioned. Whereas the Triumph 22 just doesn't really give me that much back in comparison to this shoe. It feels a bit lifeless, really. So I think this is an okay shoe. Does its job, but the Hurricane 24 I think is a bit special, and that's the one I'd go for out of these two.
So my take on whether you should go for the Saucony Hurricane 24 or the Saucony Triumph 22, I think you know how I'm going to go with this one. I think I've had a more enjoyable experience with the Hurricane 24. I think that it is probably one of the shoes that surprised me the most in terms of the ones I've tested this year. This is a shoe I thought I was going to love. I've loved the Triumph shoes before. I do think they are going to work for the same types of runs, but I think in terms of that experience, I think I've had a nicer one using the Hurricane 24. And I think don't be put off by the fact this is kind of billed as a kind of moderate stability shoe, because I think it's going to work for a lot of people overall based on my testing. I think, yeah, ultimately, I think the big thing for me on these two shoes, I think the makeup of the midsole here, the kind of gentle kind of rocker you get here, it just works, I think, in combination to make it a nicer shoe for those relaxed, easy runs that this shoe is ultimately built for as well. I just don't think I've got the same experience from it, and I think ultimately it's really changed from the Triumph for me. I think if you love the previous Triumph, then I think you're going to be a bit mixed, I think, about this shoe. That's not necessarily saying it's a bad shoe, it's just a different shoe. But I think in terms of these two shoes being very much close now, I think I would be going for the Hurricane 24. And I think, you know, from a price point of view, this is slightly cheaper, only by about £5 in the UK. I'd be going for this shoe for my easy, relaxed runs. And it's definitely been one of my favourite shoes I've run in this year.
That's our comparison of the Triumph 22 and the Hurricane 24. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell. We'll see you next time.